Hello everyone, this is Jorge Diaz, President and Founder of Larry Jacob Internet Marketing, and I bring you another episode of Defining Infusionsoft Success. Today I bring you Troy Broussard. He is a two-time Defining Infusionsoft Success guest. How are you?
Good. I'm invited back for the champion round, the second round in.
Yeah, and I was just telling before, he got rid of the scruff from last time. He's like all clean cut.
Yeah, shaved my second time the whole year. It didn't look good on camera, Brought the A game.
I feel honored.
Just for you and your crowd.
Thank you. So he is the author of Infusionsoft Mastery. He'll tell us a little bit about that, but we also want to talk about this Infusionsoft learning course or campaign builder learning course that you guys have released. I've seen it in my Facebook feeds and I've seen it in different places. I see your emails. So I figured it'd be a good one to cover. There's always a need for people to more efficiently learn Infusionsoft.
Yeah, it really ended up, the Mastering Campaign Builder course really just evolved out of the book itself. The book has been out for a couple of months now. It's gotten a lot of traction in the industry from newbies and advanced guys as well. So it's one of those things I really wish I would have released a long time ago, but it's something that took a while to get out, and I'm glad I did. But it also left some holes, right, where it's hard when you're talking about something like Infusionsoft, where it's very visual and a campaign builder and all of that kind of visual environment, and yet presented in a book format. And yeah, sure. I didn't want to try to straddle the fence and do a half-assed job of it. So instead of like trying to do screen prints and stuff like that, I just made the conscious choice that it was not going to be a how-to book. It was going to be a strategy, an implementation, a best practices book on the things that I've learned from working with some elite marketers over the last 10 years in Infusionsoft. And so I wanted it to be just a pure book, and that's great, and it's gotten a lot of good reviews, but the problem with that is then, of course, you leave out the actual how-to and the showing and the videos, and so that's kind of where the campaign building course came out of, Mastering Campaign Builder. It just kind of came out of the fruition of people saying, hey, I love the book, can you get a little bit more into the detail? Can you show us how it's done? And so...
Okay, so if we look at the two audiences, how would you position, like who buys the book, who buys this, or is it one person buying one first and then maybe going to the other one?
It's both. Yeah, most people are starting out with the book to check out what it's about. I think there's a lot of people that are not quite sure. They're a little bit cautious when they look at the book, and I think that that puts them at ease because they see how much meat and quality is in there, and then they see kind of my style and my approach, and that puts them at ease for checking out the course. Most people that I'm finding that buy the course have started through the book. They bought the book, they've resonated with the message, and then come buy the course as well, because it's really kind of a natural evolution of what I teach in the book.
Okay, and good sales funnel techniques. So if they're feeding one to the other, that's a good thing. So tell me about
I practice what I preach.
No, good.
Right?
No, so tell me about that, because I mean we have customers, and I'm a big advocate of if there's a self-service way for people to learn Infusionsoft where they can get a good foundation, then my job as a consultant would be let me train you on the solution we've built with you, with the assumption that the underlying Infusionsoft knowledge is there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got clients that are doing just that. They're literally buying a copy of my training and then getting some add-on licenses and just putting their staff through it as a training reference. And the way that I've positioned it is for a year access, so that they can they don't have to go in and go through every last little iota of it. They can go through and get the pieces that they need right then and there. Most of the trainings are pretty short, 15, 20 minutes. There's one or two that are pretty in-depth and long, but most of them are bite-sized morsels that allow you to kind of reference, and they're all logically kind of grouped by the best practice that they're dealing with. So whether it's email or best practices or any of those specific types of topics like that, using optional email confirmations and how to set that up properly with Infusion, and those types of tactics where they can grab the one morsel they need and use it almost as reference material as well as training. And I found probably about 30% of the buyers are actually buying it for their staff or buying it for their VA and saying, what, they've read the book, they like the book at like a CEO level, they get it, but they're not the person pulling the strings on Infusionsoft, but then they go ahead and buy the course and put their manager or their VA or their team member that's actually running it for them through it.
See, now I'm getting interested myself, because the way I've hired team members for us is we look for WordPress experts, people who can mess with the themes, because that's our space since we build membership sites. And then we slowly but surely teach them Infusionsoft, as the need arises, because sometimes we bring them on because we have a shortage of the building skill, and then slowly but surely move them later. But that might be something to kind of throw them in, because Infusionsoft, especially if you're technical, is not a difficult thing to learn if you have the right methodology. It's not the how, but I think the why, and you're kind of hinting at that.
That's exactly what my book is about, and that's really what this training course is about as well. Because, as you said, it's not hard to jump in and just start, throwing stuff at the wall. And honestly, that's the way I describe Infusionsoft. I tell people it's a blessing and it's a curse, because when you log in and you go to Campaign Builder, you've got a beautiful
blank sheet.
A blank sheet, and you can paint a Rembrandt, or you can paint something so ugly that it could only most generously be described as modern art, right?
Right.
And it's really kind of up to you. And so what my book are really about is providing a flexible, that's the key word, but a flexible foundation for how to approach that within best practice guidance. I don't believe in rigid rules, and I tell everybody rule number one for me is that, every rule has its exception. And so I teach a flexible foundation, a framework for how to build things, but there's always some exceptions, and I make tolerances for that. So to me, a foundation or a framework, it's different. A framework is very different than a system. And I think people are sold systems. Do A, do B, do C. I sell frameworks. Understand the foundation, understand the framework, and work within it most of the time, but also understand when it makes sense to not work within it. And applying the best practices, an 80-20 approach, which I'm a big fan of Perry Marshall and his 80-20 stuff. I practice that in everything I do. So yeah, that's why I think my approach is resonating with people at a beginner level as well as an advanced or intermediate level, because they're seeing that they can grab the slice that's most applicable to them and apply it.
All right, and when you get into the Campaign Builder is a fill-in for a programming language, which a program, I'm a programmer, so understanding that as something under the covers, and then for example, I've seen these campaigns that it's kind of like 50 plus, and it's kind of like, build them smaller.
I call those Franken.
Oh, man.
I call those Franken funnels.
Yeah. And then it's kind of like, if you build them in small pieces, they're more reusable, they're easy to manage, they're easy to test.
But that's exactly what I teach in here, and how to structure, how to break them out. I have whole videos about how you take a Franken funnel and you decompose it and you break it down into something that can be more manageably maintained. And I talk about the reasons for it and the structure for it. I talk about how to set up wireframes so that you don't have to waste your time doing flow charting and crazy stuff like that. But I teach how to do that right within Infusionsoft through a wireframe, and then make a copy of it and then start working on your campaigns, but always having that wireframe to go back for. And those types of, foundational kind of structures that give people that framework to play within, but also not a blank canvas that's staring them back at them and intimidating them.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Cool. So
Yeah.
I've got to get my fingers into this thing and figure that out. But I do have a customer that's coming on board in the next couple weeks, and that might be an option for them. I mean, you and I spoke like last week about this, and now so in the back of my head I'm going, okay, how do I do my next quick start, for lack of a better term?
And that's always challenging, right? Because Infusionsoft is so big, and there's so much that you could do, and you don't necessarily want to overwhelm somebody with that. And one of the things that I'm finding is I'm using it in my coaching, I'm using it in my training, I'm using it everywhere, because I'll end up referencing something, and rather than having to explain it again, I'll just say, you know what, that's video 7, you need to go check out, because I've already documented it. I've already created the process for it, and that makes a very manageable system that people can follow.
That's really convenient. And You use the term overwhelm. In last week's episode, depending on when I launched this, it was a couple weeks back, the number one reason people leave a membership site or decide not to continue with it, and what you're building is a membership project, is overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed with the content. Confused is another reason, but much more difficult is they're overwhelmed. It's like where do I even start? Where at least the guy who's confused was able to at least get far enough along, and maybe chapter 3 was confusing. I didn't get it. But if you don't, you're like deer in the headlights, and you can't figure out even where to start. And again, times have come along, but if you went back 3 or 4 years, people were like, let me give them everything because then it will be perceived as valuable. Well, it's like now you're going, okay, now what do I do? And that's a big problem.
Right? It is a balance, and that kind of comes from the Dan Kennedy thud factor marketing, right? Dan Kennedy always talked about the thud factor of, when you drop the physical print books on the table, and the louder the thud they make, the more impressive your product was. And so there was this.
It took up more space on your bookshelf. It must be valuable.
Right. And exactly, like the number of pages in a book determining its value or worth, right? And I just don't subscribe to that theory. I believe that today, more than anything, people value their time. And that's why I feel like a strategic best practices approach that I take is resonating with so many people, because it's not about, there's parts in the training where I flat out don't explain it. And I tell them, it's not worth me explaining, it's not worth you understanding. Just know this is what happens, right? Yeah. And I think people appreciate that candor sometimes, right? When you try to explain the decision diamond logic, yes, I have, 7 years of advanced math studies and
discrete science,
right. I literally did nuclear engineering, okay? So, yes, I could go into that level, but is it really worth me explaining the A's and B's of binary math and how all that works? No, it's not. Just know that these are the scenarios you're going to work with all the time, and this is how to deal with them. And I think that people look for that. They look for ways to save them time. Because honestly, and that's really what I preach in my book as well, because I believe that and I practice it as a lifestyle guy, right? I don't want my business to run my life. I want my life to constrain my business. And I think that's the beauty. What I try to do with the training is cover the topics, but break them up into small manageable pieces and title them appropriately so people can kind of pick their poison, and they can pick the areas that they really want to focus in on and skip over some of the areas for others, knowing that they have a year to access it. They can always go back and jump into other areas.
I don't get to sit down and talk to advanced math types very often, and that's my background is I've got 5-6 years of computer science in me, and 6 semesters.
I'm lucky if I can spell math anymore. Talking about radioactive nuclear decay cycles and stuff.
There's thinking that goes into that, and I tell you what, there are very few people that, first of all, are at that level where they get it. Because again, if you've been through all that kind of math and stuff, you may forget the details, but the concepts, you never lose that. And your way of thinking, but be able to take those complex concepts and bring them down where they're bite size, and omitting stuff. It's kind of like, hey, this is pretty cool, maybe, but you need to get to a finish line. Skip this, and knowing what to skip. And I'm sure there's other places in your course where you're saying, don't skip this. This may be tedious, but if you get this, that's a foundation. And then people are looking to someone like you to help them out that way so that, they know where the quicksand is and they know where the easy paths are.
Yeah, and you point out a good thing, and that is my background is in software development and programming, right?
Oh,
and programming,
I feel so bad for you. That's such a gift to know that. That's my background.
Yeah.
Little bias.
So, with that kind of background, the systematic approach, right? And you know how to break things down. And Campaign Builder really is a 4GL. It's a 4th generation programming language. It's, it's made to not look like a program, but it still is a programming language. And so having a programming background, I think, does allow me to kind of come at it from a unique perspective of, how to take advantage of things. We're taught in programming from good object-oriented design, for example, to do things in a way where you do them once and then you reference them everywhere else. So if you have to change it, then you only have one place to go back and do that. Right, and I teach the same thing in campaign building, right? I teach them, like, look, if you're going to do this thing, do it in one campaign, reference it from all of your others by applying the tag to start that logic. But now if you need to change that logic, you have only one place to go back to. And it's pretty basic stuff if you have a programming background,
right,
and
right.
if you think in terms of that. But for the average business person
no,
that really has never messed with programming, you would never even think of it that way, right?
Yeah.
And, so honestly, it's about just saving them the pain of my experience. And honestly, experience is nothing more than having screwed it up a whole hell of a lot and living to tell about it, right? So, in that extent, I'm very, very experienced.
Yeah, you've taken the arrows in the back. Well, cool. Now, let me ask you: Do you? I mean, you're behind My Fusion Helper. Is there reference to that as part of this?
There is. And I tell people that in the book as well. I said, look, this book is not a promotional book for My Fusion Helper. However, I'm not going to shy away from the fact when there's things that you need to do, and we're the only ones that do them, to tell you about it. And I tell that in the very intro of the book. So there are best practices that I reference in the training as well as in the book that do reference things that we provide in My Fusion Helper. A perfect case is when you're building a welcome campaign, capturing time zone data. And, Infusionsoft now allows you to do that, which is beautiful, except it only works if you're using Infusionsoft hosted forms, which nobody in their right mind uses, right? I love Infusion, but come on, get real. I'm not going to put the forms on my site. And so what happens is you lose lead pages or Thrive themes or something else, and then you lose all your time zone data, right? And so one of our helpers is a time zone helper. It's a geodata helper, and it'll grab the time zone and stick it into the standard system.
Is that based on the IP?
Yep, it'll pull in everything. It'll pull in their IP. It'll even pull in their latitude and longitude, and allow you to do real-time mapping of their geographical location across the world through Google Sheets. It's pretty badass. But it'll grab all their geodata, their state, their zip code, their country, their everything other than their street address.
It'll feed it into the Infusionsoft fields.
Yep, it'll let you choose where you want to stick it. So if you want to put it into the address 3, for example, that nobody really uses, or if you want to stick it in custom fields, you can do that. And then it'll allow you to update the existing system time zone so that you can do that. And it works. What's nice about it is it works as a redirect, not just as a script on your opt-in page, because most people's geo scripts, they're JavaScript based, and you paste them on your web form. And that's great for somebody opting in. But what if you've already got a list of 40,000 people? You want to get geodata for them as well. So we do it as a redirect. So now when you send out an email broadcast and you say, go check out my latest blog post, instead of linking to the blog post, you link to our helper and we direct to the blog post. And so when we do that, we're actually gathering all that IP data and all that geodata and time zone data and storing it for you, even for your existing list, or at least the engaged portion of it. So, so
there's a feature. There's a feature that I didn't even know you had, because I mean, it's like you're one of those toolbox kind of, and it's kind of like, okay, I haven't played with that tool yet.
It's hard because we have almost 60 features now. So there's so much in there that a lot of people don't realize, and it's hard to market sometimes, right? Because it's easy to sell one thing. If all your app does is one thing, it's easy.
You're the guys that do that GoToMeeting connection. It's like and 59 other things.
Right.
So no, but I hear you. But I tell you what, with just about every, not everyone, but a good like half to 60% of our clients, we're kind of like throwing that in as part of it, because we know we're going to need it as we build it anyway. And everything like, the math calculations between dates, this is going to be due 30 days from now, and that way you store that data and you can keep it around. I think a lot of people...
we do a lot with that, and we try to go to the nth degree on everything. So like the format helper, where you want to format dates a specific way or whatever, you as a programmer would appreciate that. We give you a bunch of standard options. Here's all the normal ones people want. But then we allow you to simply plug in a PHP format code and format whatever the heck you want.
Going back to the Unix syntax.
So we give you the 80-20. We make the easy, but we also give you the ability to do the really specific stuff that, isn't the dumbed down version. And I think that really resonates with people. Our GoToWebinar integration, it does the simple stuff, it does the basic stuff. But our GoToWebinar integration does stuff nobody else in the industry does. Like, we will allow you to literally segment people that attended your webinar based on the length of characters or words that they typed in the questions that they asked while present on your webinar.
Really?
So if you want to because we have clients that
Like
sell $25,000, $50,000 programs on a webinar, they put 1,000 people on the webinar. They only need to make one sale to pay for the entire webinar, okay? So what happens? They need that top 1% of the most engaged people on that webinar. And the person's questions and their participation during the webinar is the biggest probability indicator for that. So we can go out there and say, anybody that asked over 25 words worth of questions during the webinar, tag those specifically so that, and somebody that's doing this would have their phone number automatically. They would require the phone number at registration. Sure. Yeah, and then you're grabbing the top 50, 75 prospects that they can get up on the phone and close those deals, right? So we do the simple stuff, but we really do take it to that elegant extreme as well.
We could be here for a long time. So we got your book, we've got your course, and My Fusion Helper. I'm going to come up when we publish this. I won't even ask you. We'll publish it because you'll probably be giving us 6 URLs or something. But when we publish this, I'll make sure to put the link in the blog post so people can go and find out either about your book, either about your course, and then My Fusion Helper for sure. Because I think everybody needs one of those.
The easiest way to do that is give you one link because it's the tip of the iceberg for everything.
Okay.
So if they go to get.ismastery.com, that will give them a free plus shipping offer on the book for just $6.95 in the U.S. So they can save themselves a bunch of money and get a free plus shipping on the physical copy of the book. And then I include some information about the training program with the book, and I definitely talk about My Fusion Helper in the book and the training, so that'll get them all free through one spot.
Yeah, and I've got my personally signed version.
I sign everyone that goes out, man. I treat everybody like that, and that's part of the reason I've sent out hundreds of books, and every single one of them I've signed, and I take the time to do that. I do a lot with marketing automation, but I'm old school. I use marketing automation to create old school opportunities, like getting on the phone with people.
You've got the gray hairs like I have there. Way to go.
Yeah, I've got a few of those, Got to shave the rest of it off so nobody notices.
Nobody can tell. Good. Well, hey, Troy, thank you so much for joining me. I guess I'll probably, will you be at ICON, or I think you said you won't be?
Absolutely. We got a big booth there,
so
we'll be there and seeing everybody with My Fusion. And we've got a big surprise coming at ICON, too, that we're going to be announcing. A whole nother app and for Infusionsoft. Don't want to let the cat out of the bag just yet, but definitely come check it out at ICON because we'll have some fun stuff to show everybody.
Great. Well, I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.